All right, you guys. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. Founder of Tree of Liberty Society, Ben McClintock, is back on the show tonight with us, and he is working from the national to the local level to educate citizens on the principles of liberty and expose those conspiring to take away your freedoms. It's time for you to become a part of the community taking action. Understanding the reality of conspiracy is essential. Numerous historical and contemporary sources confirm the existence of a vast effort to overthrow freedom and impose control over all nations. The scriptures teach that we are commanded to expose these works of darkness. Yes, that's right. And for failing to do so allows them to flourish. Guys, I want you guys to check out our Liberty Boot Camp over at treeoflibertysociety.com and get his book, Invasion. You have more books too, Ben, but Ben McClintock, everybody. Welcome to the show, Ben. How are you?
Fantastic. So just grateful to be on with you. I just love how you guys are not afraid to speak your faith in Christ. I mean, it's something you see so many people, they want to be inclusive and don't want to shut people out, but it's not really shutting people out by just speaking the truth, because this is so important. We cannot be afraid to mention that this is a spiritual battle and that we need to be on God's side.
Yeah, spiritual battle is real, brother. Excellent. Thank you, man. You have been really, really busy on your Facebook page. And I love it, man. You're throwing so much stuff out there. To me, it feels like when I was first exposed to all these things that you put out there, it felt like 2016, 2012, something like that when I started getting into all that stuff. And you're just right on it for a whole new generation that people have never even heard about some of this stuff. You know, you talked about the secret societies last time, and I believe the what was the Skull and Bones, and another outfit but they're all connected, right? They're all out there and they're all doing their thing. Yep. And I like that you're talking about exposing them. I mean, what is that? Ephesians 5:11. 5:11. Ephesians. That's one of our favorites right there, because we always that's what that show is for, is to expose this evil, and that's why you're here tonight. So, Outcast, you remember Ben? Look at him.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Ben, I want to apologize. I usually would work your name into the prayer. I was so deep in that prayer, I blanked on your name for a minute. I apologize. But Ben, I'll never forget from the last time you were on how you've sacrificed everything for truth. And not everybody is willing to do that. So God bless you, brother. That is a real warrior spirit you have. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's tough that you went through all that stuff. Man, that was crazy. You guys go check out 192 if you want to know what we're talking about. He dropped a whole load of information on that one. So, all right, Ben, you had a book that this is your newest book, right? Invasion. That came out about a year, a month ago, last month, or the beginning of this month, or something.
Just earlier in this month. So what we've done is we had it in 2 volumes, and we've put it together, and we've added a 3rd book to it. So it's 3 books in one, plus a whole bunch more, to help folks understand what's going on, principles of liberty, and then how do we go on the offense to take it back. And so it's all right there. We want to make it easy for folks, put it all together in one package. And so it just came out just earlier this month, right there at the treeoflibertysociety.com.
All right, treeoflibertysociety.com. And I'm going to put that up right now while we're talking and scroll through it a little bit. So you guys can take a look at it. treeoflibertysociety.com. So that's awesome. Look at that. You have all those different Bohemian Grove, Skull and Bones, globalism. So Council on Foreign Relations. I mean, these are all my favorite things to talk about and learn about. I mean, that's crazy. So I like the resistance to tyrants. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. So Ben, I have written here on our notes, and part of the show audio here is talking about the satanic conspiracy. What are we talking about here? What can you enlighten us on about the conspiracy that's happening?
Folks need to understand, like, sometimes people say, well, how do we know which conspiracy to expose and which one's real? And, well, this isn't about conspiracies. These are all tentacles, and that's why on the cover of the book we have a Leviathan, because really this is a satanic conspiracy that goes all the way back to Cain, right? We have Cain and Satan conspiring together to kill his brother for gain. And that same conspiracy exists to this day, and it is Satan that is organizing, and that even if there's these different organizations, they all trace back to the same source. And so we really need to understand that spiritual nature of this to be able to really grasp what it needs to be done and the seriousness of the situation. And so that we don't think that there's nothing that can be done, so that we don't just give up, that we actually say, I have a responsibility to my Lord and Savior to be able to say, I was a good and faithful steward. I did everything I can to promote the gospel, to be able to bring more people to him, and to be able to return, when he comes back to his vineyard, that is in a better position than it was when I got here. And so if we understand that, then we start to get to work, and that's really what this is all about. And so understanding, like we're talking about, globalism is a big part of that, because Satan involves himself in counterfeits. We have, Christ, of course, will reign as King of Kings. And of course, because of that, Satan wants to counterfeit that. And so he's building a satanic counterfeit to what Christ will do when he returns, and build this satanic world government to enslave mankind. And so we need to understand that globalism is a satanic counterfeit to that, and recognize what's really going on there. And one of the organizations you mentioned when you first brought me on about how we're working on the local level. Well, if this is a global conspiracy, how do we recognize it on the global level? And one of the things I talk about in the book Invasion is how the Council on Foreign Relations. And so if any of your viewers have not heard of the Council on Foreign Relations, I highly recommend another book by James Perloff called Shadows of Power, where it goes into the history of the Council on Foreign Relations. In my book, I do a brief overview, but his book, Shadows of Power, just gets deep into it and its history and its goals. So the Council on Foreign Relations is a global program to implement global government underneath the United Nations. But they recognized that they couldn't get other communities. They couldn't get, the United States all over the country to go along with their program. And so they formed individual chapters all across the country of the CFR called the American Committees for Foreign Relations. And they've got them in states like Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Vegas. You have them in Ohio, Oklahoma, Texas, in all these areas where they're typically going to be more liberty-minded as a populace, to get them to be to get them sold, and to get their local governments to implement these Agenda 2030 programs, to get them to introduce these globalist programs into the local communities. But they don't realize it. The people in Utah or the people in Idaho don't know what's going on, because they think, hey, I've got, these guys, they talk nice, they look like me, they talk like me.
Yep.
There's no way they could be doing evil, and not realizing how they've been infiltrated. And so going through those programs to help people understand what's really going on there.
That, man, Ben, that is deep. And when I was first learning about all these things, I started telling people about what I'm learning about how they get into our small towns. And, of course, people can't believe it because, but we have a great, a township board, and, they would never let that stuff happen. I said, do you think they would not let it happen if they didn't know what was happening? Because that's the problem here with these small towns, is like so many people in our local area. If they listen to this last 10 minutes that we've been talking, they have no idea what we're talking about, and I'm saying stuff from, that goes down to having backyard chickens to the well, they want to put meters on our wells, all these kinds of things. And I'm sure you're very familiar with all that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing too. It is hard because there are so many small towns all across the country for them to infiltrate all of the city councils. And so that's really where you can have your biggest impact, where you can actually win, where statewide elections in most cases are completely controlled. And if you're not a part of the club, then you're not going to get into office. And so what they don't realize is their state legislatures are often co-opted, and that, maybe your city council is not in on it, but they're, they're going to, or local organizations, statewide organizations that are designed to train the local leaders to implement some of these programs without them even knowing what's going on, whereas the legislature or the governor does know what's going on, and they're in on it, and they've been compromised. Yeah,
that's the most dangerous thing right there. You get some of these more outcasts, like what you have going on over there. You get some of these more liberal communities And I think they know exactly what they're doing. They just keep it hush hush and act like everything is just staying nice and local and all this stuff. But then you get out to some of these smaller towns that people, again, they just don't realize what they're being handed and being told to do to their community. They just think they're being good people and giving them some information. And people are just being led right down into, these little Agenda 21 cities that are hooked up on all kinds of, craziness. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, what creeps me out about it, I mean, like you can understand how it happens in a liberal community like where I live, because they're overeducated, underinformed, and overopinionated. Okay,
Yeah,
that's classic liberalism, right?
Yeah.
But what creeps me out, Jesse, is north of here near you is Lake Orion, which is designated as a smart city. Now that's kind of more rural, regular kind of grassroots folks. I mean, there's money, there's a little bit of everything there, but that's a shocker to me. That tells me that this is huge, and that there are people at the top that are leading everybody astray into this. And it's not just liberals; it's creeping in everywhere. I mean, I wouldn't consider Lake Orion liberal, would you, Jesse?
Oh, not at all. No.
Right.
No.
But somebody found it in their interest to designate them a smart city. So it's insidious. Whatever it is, it's behind the scenes, it's covert, and it's thorough. Would you agree with that statement, Ben?
Oh, for sure. And they thrive on you being naive and taking them at their word. Here, Utah is not exactly considered to be, nationally speaking, to be this, or blue state. It's family oriented, all that kind of stuff. But our governor said to some activists that smart cities aren't a thing; it's all made up. And then a couple of months later, goes and speaks to a smart city convention. And so they expect us to be naive and say, oh, people are just misunderstanding what's going on. When you have these individuals, if we don't understand how the conspiracy operates, we're going to fall for those types of lies. And so it's essential that we dig in and start to grasp and understand what we're dealing with, so that we know that they're lying to us and we call them on it. And we don't allow it to continue.
Yeah, that's smart. That's the way to do it. It's I've had talks with that local community you're talking about, Outcast, and they were looking at me like I was doing magic tricks or something. Yeah, there's like, what are you talking about, Agenda 21? I'm like, dude, you're implementing stuff here. Look at you're completely changing the face of this small town. First of all, you're doing these stack and pack little shops and all that. You're doing look, now we have cameras all over the place. You're going in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I went into that a little bit, and they said, "Oh man, that sounds just like conspiracy theory stuff." That's not happening. So I'm at a dead end with some of these morons, So
the fact that what's going on in your community is happening in communities all across the country. That should be so obvious. It's not like all of a sudden this local mayor is like, "I've got this great idea that just happens to be being implemented in every city across the country." And so we have to start to recognize, hey, there's a pattern. This isn't being done randomly. This isn't happening by accident. It's being done on purpose. And to be dismissive like that, say, well, how about, if you're seeing this happening all over the country, if they're an honest person, they're going to say, where's the evidence? Show me more. They're not going to try to dismiss you. That is somebody that is prideful and, frankly, oftentimes a part of the agenda.
Yeah. In particular, I think the supervisor over there, while being a good guy, and I know him personally, I kind of approached him with these things, and it's like he's just looking right through me. He doesn't understand that the stuff that he went to some other, to some DC or something to get all these books and manuals and how to run government and all that stuff. Yeah. He doesn't realize what he's just done. But now you start going up down the main roads over there, you can see it. It's all laying out. So I'm frustrated with that stuff. That's my hometown. So I don't know. I guess there's
legislatures across the country that are requiring cities, all across, even in rural areas. So you've got a population of 5,000, 10,000 people, and they're saying you're required to get state funding to build X amount of high density housing. There's nobody in this town of 10,000 people that wants high density housing. It's insanity. But what they're trying to do is to make sure and transform the culture, because they know that when you are more of a rural people where you are dependent on the government for your water, for your sewage, for just your sustenance, that you become more of a, a totalitarian community. Whereas the people that have their own property, their own water, their own sewage, their ability to provide for themselves, they're not going to put up with the garbage. And so they are trying to get everybody, no matter where they're at, into these high density smart communities.
Yeah,
and that's why you see programs also all over the country getting high speed internet. And you have the fiber optic, gig speed internet in all of these more rural communities where you've got maybe 5, 10, 20 families and they're using federal money to do it. Now, why does the federal government want to do that? It's not because they love you so much that they want you to stream Netflix all day long. There's something much more to it.
Yeah, nefarious.
Yeah. It makes me think of too. I mean, correct me if you disagree, but for some reason, my brain just keeps going to the projects of the 70s, the 60s and 70s. Yeah. Every major city had project housing. I wonder if that was a test run, because when I look at what they're doing, not too far from me, it was one of the first malls in America, Northland Mall, has been demolished, and they are developing this huge micro city, whatever they want to call it, and it's going to have 3 stages of income levels, and it's going to have dog parks, and they're selling it as this wonderful thing. But what it is a smart city built from scratch. It's not like converting an existing city into a smart city. It is just building it. And I just keep thinking, this is project housing. And they're going to try to entice people to go there. And when people say, no, we're not interested, and it sits there and starts to rot, that's when they're probably going to start pushing people into it through more catastrophes, more fires, more, wildfires, more flooding, all kinds of stuff that they've been doing. Because Ben, I don't think it was on your radar, but I heard that Scotland, Ireland, and Wales has all had wildfires just recently, and they're all near smart cities.
Yep.
For the first time ever, wildfires.
Yeah.
And you think the same thing happened in Hawaii and California, the same thing. Those fires just happen to be in the same areas where they're trying to have these different, projects that they're trying to put in. It's, it's amazing. Yep. And back east, there's a lot less land, like in western states like Nevada, Idaho, Utah, and Arizona, where the federal government owns anywhere between 60 and 80% of our states, where they have all this land off limits. That's the kind of stuff what you're doing in more, populated areas like California or back east, is where they have to do those types of fires. But in these other places, they just keep land off limits. I know in certain areas in these more rural states where they prohibit you from building. If you're out in the country and you want to have, some friends move near, they say, oh, no, you can only have one house for every 80 acres. But if it's in with city limits, oh, no, you can't have land. We've got to have, 30 houses for every quarter acre. And so they're trying to drive people out of the rural areas and force them into the cities.
Yeah, and that's, I always compare it to the Hunger Games and movies like that, those type of games where, like, you have the capital city, then you have all the districts out there that are, fighting for food and everything's gray. And then they go back to the scene of the capital city where they have high-speed rails, the best food, elegant balls, the best, clothing and theater and all this stuff. So my kids have been watching that show, Hunger Games, since they were little, since it came out. Well, my youngest just watched it again. She's 21 now, and it hit her like a ton of bricks. She's like, Dad, just like you said. She could see it now, with older eyes, with more mature eyes. And I said, thank you. Yes, finally, you could see that. And now awesome. It's here. Yeah, it's here now. I mean, you can go to any big city and see it now, obviously. I mean, right on there on the screen, Ben, it's at the end of every one of our podcast episodes. It's SMART, self-monitoring, analysis, reporting technology. So when people talk about smart cars and smart meters and smart watches and smart appliances and all that stuff, it's not for us. We get the benefit of getting some cold food, but they get the benefit of controlling everything we're going to do here shortly in the future. So maybe I jumped ahead a little something here, but I think we're on the same wavelength there.
Oh, for sure. And then what they're doing too is they're trying to limit your ability to travel on your own. Talk about things like Hunger Games, but you see like the movie like I, Robot or Minority Report, where they were able to take over your vehicles. And we see that same thing happening today with these smart cars, where the federal government gets a warrant and they shut off the car. So now you can't use your own car.
Yep.
And so they are putting in these, transit authorities that cover rural areas, trying to get you to entice you into the cities. But what it's also doing is they're cutting off the roads. So they're increasing traffic to get you to say, oh, I better take the train, or I better take the bus, because otherwise I'll be stuck in traffic, or I won't be able to do the things that I want to do in the time that I want to do it in, and force you into being able to be controlled. And the way you travel is really what it comes down to. They make it inconvenient to use your own vehicles, and they build all of these trains and rails and bus lines to force you into this. And now you have a complete control grid within a city limits, or within even, with a lot of these multi-city, the entire regions and regional governments is what they're doing with that.
That reminds me of, like you said earlier, 90% or 80. What is it? It used to be 80% of the people used to live in the farms, right, and 20 in the city. Well, that was 100 years ago. Now it's completely opposite, and I'd say it's probably 90% of the people live in cities, and maybe 10% live out there, in the farms. So exactly. I think that's an imbalance there. That is, it's gone way too far. Because their plan, if you see their plan, then you know what to look for. Well, you have these 10 mega cities. Well, you just got to get all the people into the mega cities, and who are the ones that hold out and stay out there, like me. It's going to cut us off, and it's going to be like, what's that? the Electric State movie that just came out, So, and again, none of this stuff is stopping or slowing, even with the new administration in office right now. I don't know if they're hip to what's going on, or if they're down with what's going on. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, again, if we believe that previous elections were rigged, then I think we have to recognize that whoever wins is who the powers that shouldn't be would like to be there, and so they put on this basically a professional wrestling match, making us think like one side is good and one side is bad, and we've got to root for our side, otherwise the other one's going to win. And this is something that Carol Quigley wrote about and is quoted quite often. He's one of these insiders that bragged about what the conspiracy was doing. And he said that the only thing he disagreed with these globalists were that they wished to remain secret. He felt that what they were doing was fantastic. And it's talked a lot about in that book I mentioned, Shadows of Power by James Perloff. But he wrote a book called Tragedy and Hope, the history of the world in our time, where he lays out this project. And he says that what they do, what the insiders do, is they make you think that that you throw the rascals out and these new people come in, but there's no shift in policy. But what happens is, because what he said was, they have both parties be virtually indistinguishable in actual practice. And so we think we've thrown the rascals out, but for some reason government still keeps getting bigger. For some reason the globalism still keeps getting in there. And so when we start to step back and recognize how the conspiracy operates, and we start to wake up to how it's being implemented, then we take personal responsibility. We're not pushing it off onto somebody else that might be good, might be bad. It's irrelevant if they're good or bad or not, because it's my responsibility. It's not their responsibility to protect my freedom. I've got to stand up for my freedom. I've got to make sure, what is my local community doing? How is my state implementing this? And make sure that I am in a part of an organization that is organized together to magnify their efforts to stop the globalism, to stop the tyranny from happening on the ground level.
Do you know of any towns out there that are standing up and fighting and actually winning? I mean, I'm talking just even small towns with 20,000 people that have taken over their boards, and they're running their town the way it should be run, the way they want it to be run. There's got to be some towns out there that are fighting against this secret tyranny,
Oh, for sure. There absolutely are. Working with city councils in several areas where they're actually saying, murdering children, murdering unborn babies in our town is a crime. And, if you have Even if you have a state-sponsored Planned Parenthood, you are a criminal organization. You're not allowed to be here.
Nice.
We don't allow fluoride in our water here. We don't.
Awesome.
There's also going on the offense of using what the founding fathers said needed to be used was nullification, where we say any official that comes into our city to implement federal gun bans will be arrested. And so yes, I am working with cities that are already implementing that.
Awesome. So
cool.
Isn't that cool, Outcast? We need something like that where you're at. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. Wow.
You have you do. Let me see here. I'm scrolling through here with your Liberty Boot Camp, and that's got to be what you're talking about here. What all is? How do people get involved with your Liberty Boot Camp?
It's free. It's just go to treeoflibertysociety.com and click on the Learn tab, and it's right there, and it's completely free. It's 6 online classes that you can take at your own pace. Excuse me. And what it does is, what we noticed, especially during the beginning of the fake pandemic and COVID, was that people said that they wanted to support freedom. They didn't like the tyranny that was going on, but they didn't understand what liberty was. They didn't understand the principles of natural law. And so they were, didn't recognize when things were going, when we had the bait and switch, when a legislator would say that, hey, we're expanding freedom, but there was a hidden line in there that said they were actually taking away your freedom. And so we felt that we needed people to kind of go back to basics and to be able to say, well, okay, what is natural law? When the founding fathers talked about the laws of nature and the nature's God, what did that mean? And how do we implement that today? The second course gets into the Declaration of Independence. Why was that okay? That seems extreme in today's, political ideology. And so going through those basic principles and then getting into the conspiracy, and then what it was that the founding fathers did to be able to get freedom was just giving those examples, those real world examples, and so that people understood that, hey, I can do this, and then they could see when it was being violated, and then they could say, okay, these are the things that I need to be doing to go on the offense. James Madison in Federalist 46 said that the means against a out-of-control federal government were powerful and at hand. And he said that the people needed to be disquietous. And these are words that we don't really use a lot anymore. But what that means was we need to be constantly bringing up these things. We need to stop just, being pacified by these things. Always bring them up. And we need to make sure that we're always resisting and we're not helping support the tyranny that's being implemented. When an Amber Alert goes out and says, parent kidnaps child, you're like, wait a second, parents can't kidnap their own child. Because what we see so much happening is, they didn't want their kid to have chemotherapy, and so they took their kid out of the hospital, and now the government's calling that kidnapping. Yep. No, I'm not going to cooperate with the government agents to turn these parents over and have their kids force-fed things they don't want to be force-fed. And so if we understand what the founding fathers taught and what the solution was, and we would stop falling for the solutions that are fed to us, voting harder, suing the government. Those are the things that we're told by the powers that be are the only ways to hold them accountable, when that's what nobody has ever done to hold tyranny in check. It's what the founding fathers did. It's what we see ancient Israel doing, what the Pilgrims and the Mayflower did. Those are the examples that we need to follow.
Oh, man. Outcast, do you remember when I was talking about when the term, politics and religion, and it's now a custom where people, don't say that, around Thanksgiving and all that, family gatherings and all that stuff. And I said, maybe that was all a trap. Maybe we should be talking about politics and religion in those settings. And you just reminded me of that, Ben, when you talked about people don't even recognize their liberties anymore. So because they were taught. Look, you can look at our education system. That didn't happen by accident. You know what I mean? It's like kids go to school today, and what are they actually learning? I mean, it's very confusing. Even the time when we went in the 70s and 80s, we were learning a bunch of things that I've never used before. But I don't know if they ever taught me about taxes and in 1913, Federal Reserve creation. They didn't tell us anything about this stuff, right? Why is government,
right,
who are, in our Constitution wants to keep small and limited, Well, when you go to a government education center, in their head, they're like, no, we don't want to be small and limited. We want to be big in controlling everything, including your kids and their minds.
No tyranny is going to teach you how to overthrow it.
There you go. Boom. Right there.
And what you said reminds me, there's this part in my book, Invasion, on page 174, talking about the ecclesiastical authority and what that really meant back when that was originally really kind of in the early Christian church, right after the death of the Savior. It's the ecclesia of God. We really think of it as just being a religious authority. But what we don't understand is what it was in the mindset of the ancient saints, because when they used that term, they were asserting their intention to form the political kingdom of God, and that they were actually a threat to Rome because they were teaching the people to be free. And that's really what we see is when you saw the Jews during this time, they were in cahoots with the government and they were able to live freely with the government. But when you saw the Christians actually saying, because ecclesia was the name of the governing body of Greece during the first century. So you have this governing body of Greece called the ecclesia, and the Christians are calling themselves the ecclesiastical authority. They're like, holy smokes, these guys are building up something that is a threat to us. And so we see that when ancient Israel was a threat to Egypt, that is, their political authority. That's when they really got persecuted. And then we see the early Christians, the Jews became co-opted by the government. And so the early Christians were saying, hey, we're going to be free. We're not going to be underneath your rule anymore. And that's when the government went after them. And so we start to see the things that work are the things that the powers that shouldn't be start to wring your neck around and try to stop you from doing. And that should teach us what's actually effective.
Well, you hear that, Outcast? He just tied that to the Bible with some Ecclesiastes. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
No, I love it. I'm just, the more you can tie in with the Bible, the more it just makes more sense to me. It just,
yeah.
But I mean, human freedom and the Bible seem to go hand in hand. Our God-given rights. That's the thing. People think the Constitution gives us our rights. It doesn't. It just it expresses that we already have God-given rights, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of liberals. By the way, just since we're mentioning liberals, I can't get over these liberals quoting the Constitution lately. Now that they don't like Trump and trying to jump on that bandwagon, it's like just like that overnight, liberals are now constitutionalists. Where a couple of years ago they wanted to destroy it.
I know, because old evil racist.
Well, that's an outdated document. Who cares about that?
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what they were saying for years.
Until they need to use it, yeah. Until they want to use it. But that's a battle. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say they can see the tea leaves. They sense that something has shifted, and they want to try to now incorporate some of that success into their. And once you get involved with them, they're going to unravel. But it's all communism. I mean, that's what they want to do in the end. There was a poster for the demonstrations this weekend. Did you see that thing that was going around on Facebook, Jesse?
Which one was that?
There was another protest this weekend.
Like hands off again?
Yeah. Oh, darn it. My buddy sent it to me. And it says, it reads like something like, our forefathers fought for freedom against kings and tyrants. Let's do it again. And then in the corner, there's a fist and it looks like it's communist colors. So it's like they're double speaking. Oh,
jeez.
Let's see if I can find it. I'll find it and send it to you in a second.
Communist revolution with the founding fathers is disgusting.
Exactly.
That's what they're trying to do. Yeah.
I'm going to send it to you in a second.
Okay.
You talk about the Constitution doesn't grant us our rights. In fact, when you look at the Bill of Rights, it's a list of thou shalt nots. It's basically like the Ten Commandments, but for government. Thou shalt not write a law. Government cannot write a law about freedom of speech. About you cannot infringe your right to religion. That doesn't mean that the government buys you a press. Right. Doesn't mean the government buys you a website. Doesn't mean the Second Amendment says government can't take away your right to defend yourself. That doesn't mean the government buys you a gun. They don't provide you with anything. It's simply saying government can't do this. And then the 10th Amendment says, and if we didn't give you the authority to do something, just because we didn't say you couldn't do it, if we didn't say you could, you can't. Mm-hmm. And so we're totally reversed now, where we think that if they were prevented from it, that's what they can't do. But anything else they can. It's the exact opposite. We need to get back to understanding, make America states again, where we are. The states are the creator of the government. Which means we're the master. And so we need to stop thinking of the federal beast as our master and start to reassert ourselves as the master and saying, you're told, you not only were you told, not given permission to do this, you were specifically told you can't do this, and we're not going to allow it anymore.
The word in our opening, I have the word unalienable, and I had it phonetically sounded that way, not unalienable, but unalienable, because of the word lean. Most people are saying unalienable, which is incorrect. So when people hear that in our opening, I knew that was totally out of the constitutional, the way it was originally intended. And then over time, just like so many other things get kind of washed out. Nobody corrects it. Nobody's, understanding what's going on as far as, how to apply it to current modern day. It's nuts. Now, the 10th Amendment, that's one of my favorites. I love the 10th Amendment. But it's federal government hates that thing. States' rights, you guys. The 10th Amendment is just almost like a secret weapon, but there's very little people using that now. People like you, people that actually know what it is. But again, let's not talk politics and religion around family, around Christmas time, around all this stuff. Yeah, I'm going to put that up here on the screen here in just a second, Outcast. That's a good one, the No King. So, I really enjoy that. I mean, the power of the 10th Amendment, Ben, is something that modern day people we just don't seem to understand the power of that. Am I right in saying that?
Oh, we do not understand, because if we did, the federal government would not be as big as it is today.
Yeah, and keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Exactly. And I don't know if you wanted to do it. You mentioned earlier Real ID. That might be a good segue into it, because there are actually states that are actually implementing the 10th Amendment against the unconstitutional actions of the federal government. I don't want to get ahead of you, but that'd be a good segue if you want.
No, I do want to get there. To the 10th Amendment, or to the Real ID, because that's something that's going on right now. But first, hang on, I got to find this thing. The Outcast just sent me this, and I got to find it for you because I want to put it up on the screen. Here it is right here. And if I can get this, there it is. All right. So you guys can't see it yet, but you will in just a second when I switch over here. So this is the No Kings. What do you call this, Outcast? It's the No Kings flyer, right?
Yeah, it's a flyer, and it was a protest this weekend. We went. I actually drove by it in Waterford. It was right on M59 this weekend, Jesse. I don't know if you knew that.
No,
there was. I say this lightheartedly. I'm joking. There was dozens of protesters. It wasn't that big, but their attitude was big. But No Kings, 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, April 19th, 2025. And then look at the colors, the fist, that is total RCP. That's Revolutionary Communist Party 101 right there.
Yes,
and,
yes.
What a great way to try to lure people in. It's just funny to me. They're really good at shape shifting, aren't they?
I avoid using the term American Revolution because of the co-optedness of it. It's the I like to refer to it as the American War for Independence. That way, there's no confusion. There is no connection between what these wannabe tyrants are doing and what the founding fathers did.
Yeah, they did the same thing with the word anarchy and anarchism and all that. They ruined that word too. Dang it. So
music lover just keeps hitting it out of the park. It just says interesting. They just want to be ruled by queens and commies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Jeez, man. I don't know. I just those are the ones that need to be talked to about politics and religion around the kitchen table, right? So all right,
exactly.
Let's get into the Real ID, because I don't know if it's in the media right now. Yeah.
Transition to that real quick, if it's okay. You talk about not enough people doing nullification. It was something that was done very often in the first, up to the 1850s and 60s.
Yep.
But then it kind of died off. But then you have Rosa Parks not refusing to go to the front of the bus. That's nullification. I mean, back of the bus. That's nullification. You go to the 2000s and you go to Obamacare. You had when the mandate was still there, You had states like Ohio saying, you know what, their legislature passed legislation saying we are not going to enforce that in our state, and any federal government that comes in there to enforce that, we're not going to allow it.
Mm-hmm.
And so people don't realize that never made, of course, the headline news at CNN, Fox, or MSNBC,
Right.
because they don't want you to know about nullification.
Yep.
And then with the Real ID, a lot of confusion with the Real ID. But there are a lot of states, and I was involved in this in the early 2000s, especially stopping the Real ID. You know, some people don't know what it is, so they think, why are you against Real ID? Like, they think it means like an identification that is real. And just like,
Clever name.
The powers that shouldn't be, they always use Orwellian doublespeak to name their bills, like the Patriot Act.
Yep.
No Child Left Behind. And they did the same thing with Real ID. It's an acronym, capital REAL. And what it is, it's a national ID where they were never given authority to create a federal ID. It left to each state to set the standards for that, and it was separate. There was no communication between the states. It was each one had the ability to be able to define what allowed you to get an identification in their state, and then if you moved from a different state that had different standards, and you moved in and it didn't meet those standards, they would make you go through and produce more materials to be able to get an ID for that state. I used to live in Washington State, and I moved to Arizona, and I had to do that very same thing. I moved to a different state, and I had to produce different materials than I had to produce to the state of Washington. And so in 2005, the W. Bush administration introduced legislation into a Republican Congress. And so people think, oh, a Republican, in presidency, a Republican in the Congress, it must be good, right? It was to fight terrorism, just like the Patriot Act. And what they said what they wanted to do was to have this national database. Think, when you go to Nazi Germany or the Soviet Union, when they ask you for your papers, that's
please.
What's going on here. Is it's a national ID card that removes the autonomy and the independence of your state deciding what to do, and puts into now a federal database where now the ATF, the FBI, they can access this anytime they want to and find out all the information they want about you, your tracking, where are you going, what kind of things are you buying, just the things anything that they can do to be able to centralize control. And if you don't get it, you're not allowed to fly. You're not allowed to go to a federal courthouse. You're not allowed to visit monuments. You can't go to the Capitol building in D.C. You can't go to the White House on a school tour if you don't have this new national ID card that is very much the hallmark of totalitarianism and great liberty people, not fake liberty people that you show in those pictures of these communists pretending to be liberty people, but real liberty people like Dr. Ron Paul have been fighting this and talking about it ever since it first was introduced in 2005. And when I was in Arizona, I led the effort there to get their state. And there were 21 states that said, you know what, we're not going to go along with that. They passed nullification saying we're not going to do that. And so right now, those states that are still not complying, the feds are now under Homeland Security, and the federal government is saying that if you don't get this by May, so next month, you're not going to be allowed to fly. You're not going to be able to do these things. And so they're trying to squeeze you to implement their tyranny voluntarily by, you got the card of your own free will. Nobody forced you to. And so that way they can do this without knocking on your door and putting a boot on your face.
So this kind of reminds me of the threat with the ATF and the bump stocks, or not the bump stocks, but the short barrel rifles and the braces. That just they backed off of that. It came to the compliance. You had to disassemble your brace from your AR-15 if you had that, and you had to fill out this paperwork and send it in. Now you just let them know that you have a brace on your AR-15, but when you take it off and you put the brace over there and the AR over here, then you're in compliance. Well, a lot of people turned that paperwork in, said, "Hey, I have a brace for my AR, and this is what it is." But no worries, I took it off and I separated it now. all of a sudden now the ATF has all that, but they dropped all this mandate stuff. So same with the COVID papers, the fake the pandemic crap. When they were saying all that kind of stuff, I was like, no, I'm not having any of your nonsense, right? And so the obvious question here is, Ben, May 7th, that's the date. If you don't have if you don't have your papers proper to date, not to mention, our illegal Social Security cards, that number doesn't work. Our driver's license, that number doesn't work. Our CPL card, no, that's not going to work. So many things. So now we got to have this another, I guess fourth, probably way more than that. But there are so many things now that we have to prove that it's us. So when the time comes, May 7th.
May 7th. And that's what they're doing. And it's been this thing because of so many states resisting, right? I said this was passed in 2005.
Yeah.
So we're talking 20 years, and they're like finally giving us a deadline to do this. It's because of resistance. Mm-hmm. So resistance is key. And what's happened is over the years, states have fallen and capitulated. There's still a handful of states that are still holding strong and saying, no, if you don't want it, you can still have our state driver's license and not have it be a Real ID compliant license. If your license has the yellow star on it, you're already compliant. And so just as an FYI, that's how you can check if you're Real ID, national ID card compliant. And and what they do is they get you. They say, oh, this is to fight terrorism. Oh, this is to fight illegal immigration, like with the E-Verify for jobs and working. Well, what it actually is, it's a database where now, and it's not really about fighting illegal immigration, because the biggest part of illegal immigration is the H-1B visas that are overstayed on their welcome, and so they're bringing people here for jobs. What these things like E-Verify and the Real ID are really all about is preventing political enemies of the government from getting jobs. I actually myself applied for work with the post office, and they sent me back and they said, no, I'm sorry, you failed the FBI background check. And I was like, what are you talking about? I've never been charged, let alone convicted of any type of crime. Mm-hmm. And so why is that? So I actually did a Freedom of Information Act request to get my so-called FBI criminal record from them. And I got a letter back from the FBI saying we can neither confirm or nor deny your record because it would jeopardize national security. Yep. And so that's what this is all about. It's not about stopping illegal immigration or being able to stop terrorism. It's about controlling political enemies.
Okay, so I have a scenario. People are playing this out here on the chat rooms here. Yeah. For example, you don't have a Real ID. You have to go to a federal building because they called you into court, but you don't have your federal ID. So they just created something there, a slip in the in the time continuum or something. They created something here where now you are going to be in trouble.
Right.
So if I see people are checking for that gold star,
that's a real scenario.
Yeah.
That happened just about a year ago in Idaho with, I don't know if you've heard of Ammon Bundy, but he's been in trouble with the feds for 2011ish, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And he didn't have his ID, and so he's like, I'm here to come to court, and they're like, oh, sorry, you're not allowed in the building. We're charging you with contempt for not showing up to your hearing.
Yeah, and then they shot him in the back in that big snowstorm. Oh, that makes me so mad. That was his son, right? Lavoy Finicum?
No, just his associate, just a friend of his that was working together with him.
Yeah, I paid attention to all that stuff. I really was just so mad during all that stuff. All right, so there's people saying that they have that star in their upper right corner, which indicates Real ID right now. They never signed any paperwork. It's just when they redid their, it's there it is. It's all
just sent to them. Yeah.
So how'd that happen now? Because now all of a sudden they're compliant, but they didn't do it and take any steps to become so-called compliant. So I wonder how that happened.
So what happened was their state legislators passed legislation to make their driver's licenses not only compliant, but they might have already been compliant with what the feds said, but they also integrated it with the federal system. And so now, without you're even realizing what's going on, now all of a sudden you've been given, mailed in the mail, or picked up from the DMV your now national ID card without even realizing it, because it has your state's name on it, and so of course it's your state driver's license. No, that yellow star says it's a federal, it's a national ID card, and you didn't even know about it. And so this is why what we see here is the feds and the states are in cahoots together to implement this tyranny, and you think you've got a liberty-minded legislature when they just stabbed you in the back.
I'd be interested to see here now. I'm going to say this out here for the people out there in the chat room. What state are you finding that star on, and you never did the paperwork to do it? If you guys want to put your state, please do that. I'm interested to see if there's some sort of separation. We're here in Michigan, so there's no doubt in my mind they're in cahoots with the federal government, and we're going to start getting IDs back with stars on them.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, Outcast, I don't know if you have yours like that right now, but upon your next birthday, you probably will.
I don't have my ID. I just was looking for it. I don't have it at my wallet on me at the moment, but I was going to look at it. I don't know.
And there are some states like Arizona, for example. Now they offer you the choice. You can get Real ID compliant, or you can get non-compliant and still be allowed to drive around your state without getting in trouble when you get pulled over. And so, but the one that's not a compliant, it says not for use for federal identification. And so now you can't do those things, those carrots that they put out to get you to want to get this federal ID.
All right. So if you know this question, I know people already have, flights already booked for next month. They're going to show up the TSAs. They're going to ask for whatever paperwork. Some people can just show them their passport. Would that work? Yeah, domestically flights too. Okay. So, I did see on one video where some guy walked in there. He knew exactly what to do, that TSA couldn't press him. And he said, what did he say? He said a one-liner, in the TSA agent knew about it. Of course, it's not public. It's not out there publicly huge where people would know. But this guy, he said it. And the guy didn't ask him for anything. He said, "Go ahead, sir." He knew, that agent already knew. And I forgot what the sentence was. It was some fancy sentence that he said. And I was like, dang, I got to try that. And then my wife's going to get all ticked off there in the airport and say, "Would you stop messing with them guys?"
Get shackled by the TSA.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the scenario that I'm looking at now. Somebody's going to show up in the airport next month. If this holds, they're not going to have the star. Their family is going to be able to get on the plane if they have the star. What does a person do in that moment?
So what they're still doing is, it's a soft one. They're going to give you a warning and say, "We're not going to allow you to come on again." So they're like doing this one last, "Hey, we're going to scare you into doing it if you don't already have it." And so there still is that little cushion you're going to have, but they're really ramping up the pressure to get everybody to comply.
Wow. I wonder how this is going to come to head here. If this is going to get, I guess everybody's just going to lay down and say, "Okay, that's it. That's what we're doing now." I don't know. That
decides how it goes to a head. Is do we resist or do we comply? If we comply, then it's going to go away, and we're going to say, "Oh, it wasn't that bad, and I'll just go about my life," as tyranny gets to increase. But if we don't, then they're going to push it back again. They're going to say, "Oh, we just don't have enough compliance yet, and so we're going to have to push it back, and by 2027, then we'll really do it this time." And so it really is important that we push back and don't comply.
Wow. Well, I'm just trying to think of any other scenarios that might be out there with this Real ID thing. Now I've heard the opposite of it too, though, Ben. I've heard that the Real IDs is a good way to stop the illegals from voting. So when you go up to your voting booth and they ask for your ID, they're just basically looking for that star now. If you don't have the star, boom, you're illegal. You're not eligible to vote. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's how they get people like us to go along with tyranny. Well, where in the Constitution are they authorized to A, be over elections, and B, over IDs? And so Are we willing to put up with a little bit of tyranny to be able to fight something that is really, it's not designed to actually, it's designed to get us to comply because, it's to stop this other guy that's not me. Yeah. Where it's not what it's about. We're being lied to by these people to get us to go along with it because it's up to, with motor voter laws, you have the illegal aliens already have real ID, compliant IDs. And so it's just not true that it helps to stop illegal voting, because with motor voter, like in the California and in Utah, Idaho, I know Arizona and New Mexico, they just already have the yellow star on there, and as a part of motor voter, these illegals get their driver's privilege card, and it already has the star on it. And so now they can supposedly go vote if this argument is legitimate, because they have a star on their identification card. It doesn't actually do what they claim it does. It actually is about going after you and me, not about helping to secure our nation.
Look at that, Outcast. Just another trap. They stepped in the trap. They're laying the trap, and people are stepping in it. What are your thoughts on this thing?
Well, it's remarkable to me how throughout recorded history, they just keep nudging us closer and closer, using every event that they create. Ben, I love the analogy of the wrestling analogy. That is, I haven't used that one yet. That's really good. About, they put on this theater and they divide us into camps. Like at the end of the day, morally, I'm conservative because of my faith, but I am not. I'm reluctant to call myself a Republican or Democrat, but they love to just try to fracture us. And in all that fracturing, they just keep using one narrative after another, one president that everybody hates, and in the ping ponging of the match, you got the shill and you got the hero, and then the vice versa. And then we just keep getting nudged further into the corner, into enslavement. And man, they've got it down to a science, and people aren't smart enough to see any of this. I mean, they are hypnotized by everything that this world has to offer, and they're just forfeiting everything in the process. And getting them to care is really difficult, because they're trapped in this, I got to make money. I got to have this car. I got to live in this neighborhood. I got to have this amount of friends. I gotta. And all that has left them devoid of their relationship with God, which leads them devoid of their sovereignty, which leads them devoid of thinking. I'm just rambling here, but you see my point. It's insidious how this works.
They've ensured that we're spiritually dead and intellectually too stupid to understand what's going on. And then they can manipulate us. They can say, "Oh, it's our boogeyman over here that doesn't like this. So if they don't like it, it must be good." We don't understand history. We don't understand these parables that are taught to us. If we would just watch Song of the South and learn the parable of Brer Rabbit, don't throw me in that briar patch, we would understand when we're being manipulated by, hey, those bad guys over there are doing this thing that must be good, and realize, hey, maybe I'm being manipulated into thinking something bad is good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I like that. Good analogy there. Go ahead, Outcast.
Oh no, it's just rambling thought here, and I'm sure we're going to address this in the very near future when we have Sister Verita on again, Jesse. But this race thing is getting really old to me. I don't live in that headspace anymore, so I'm really fed up with it. But what the race baiting that's going on, my black friends are all telling me that they are picking up on a dog whistle that there's supposed to be a race war coming. I mean, they're all being fed this narrative that they have to fight us. And once again, we all know what that is. If they need us divided, that's the simplest way I can say it, that then they can conquer us. But it's crazy how people fall for it. If we stop falling for it, but man, I don't know. It's just, sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that tangent, but we are children of God, and whatever your melanin level has nothing to do with anything. Yes, do some people fall into stereotypes that are annoying? Yeah, but that goes for everybody. I have Italian friends that are hotheads. I'm Scottish. I'm cheap. I mean, how far do you want to take this garbage? Right? Yeah. So at the end of the day, all we have to look at is our humanity and who we are in God's eyes. But they've got us constantly infighting and looking at things that aren't relevant. But they've got us focused on it like it's the most relevant thing ever. Yeah. Why? Because if we're at each other's throats, then they can better puppet us. It's the analogy with the ants. You got red ants and black ants. They live in harmony. Until somebody shakes that jar. Who's shaking the jar? It's them. Mm-hmm. And they run sports, and they run Hollywood, and they run television, and they run the View, and and they own the banking system, and it's all the same people all the time. What would we be like as a people without they? The eternal myth and paradox. I can't take it.
It'd be us. That's what it would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what you mean, brother. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And you also mentioned something else about all these bills earlier and the fancy names and the clever way that they market them. And, people don't see it. Well, didn't Ben Franklin say something about never trade your, liberty for some security or something like that? Because in the end, you'll end up with none. So
Exactly.
And we're doing that every single day. Here that what the media loves to come out and say, and the doctors and all these people and the TSA, our job is to make you safe. No, it's my job that I'm safe, not yours. It's your job to protect my liberties, and that's it. Get out of my way. I'm going to make sure I'm safe. Okay, but they love doing that, and that's how they scare people into doing what they want to do. We're going to keep you safe, so do this. Nope, not doing it. So, but we're going to keep getting squeezed and pinched into that sort of thing. So we have Lover of Truth over here. I want to read this. He says on Rumble, I watched a short where a black lady switched from liberal ideology to conservatism. And she said never once called anything racist from conservatives. But once she changed, the liberals went nuts on her. I've seen those kind of videos too. Yeah, I've seen that stuff too. It's crazy, but I'm telling you, there's what is causing these people to think this way is what we're talking about. I think we can go back right to the beginning of the show when you have that evil that's in that Bible that comes out and it's still here all day. It's here today. It's not going away. It never will until it's all settled in the end. So we're dealing with people with that evil mindset. Go ahead, Outcast.
I feel like I keep going off in the weeds. I'm sorry, you guys, if I'm detracting anybody, right. But when you were saying that, Jesse, just now, I think that what the dog whistle, I hate to use that term again, but that subliminal message that is cued into the brainwashing of the media is it taps into a carnal desire that people have. Now, I say carnal, it means the ungodly human-like desire to have a free excuse to be a jerk. Okay. And liberalism, I think, the way the Liberal Party has become taps into that expertly. They go, hey, it is fact and it's science that this virus kills. So if any of your family members don't get on board and get the vaccine, you can uninvite them to Christmas. You can uninvite them to Thanksgiving, and you could tell them to go to hell and that they're a grandma murderer. And people go, I get to do that? Yes, you get to do that and be virtuous at the same time. They're like, and then they go out and they go, you're bad and I hate you and you're a Nazi and you're a fascist. And it's like, why did you jump on this so easily? Because there's an innate carnal desire in people, maybe a little bit more so in one party than the other, to have a free excuse to act like this. And they constantly use this platitude of morality or virtue to say that this is a free license. We give you free license to go and attack people because you're on the right side and they're on the wrong side. You are right thinking, they're wrong thinking. And I think that really animates some people. It really keeps them moving, and they know it. They know that they can do this with this type of person. So we're seeing this proliferation. We've got people like us who are waking up, and we see for things for how it is, but they're just like attack robots ready to go. And all you got to do is tell them you have a free license to misbehave, and you are virtuous. And they go, I can do that.
Oh, he threw that there in the hopper, Ben. What do you think about that?
The founding fathers said over and over again, you cannot have liberty without virtue. And it's real virtue. It's biblical virtue is the only thing that works.
Yep.
And it doesn't, with these checks and balances that we have and which are divinely inspired, if we are going to be unvirtuous, we are not going to be able to maintain our liberty. And so morality is just something we have to stick to, but not the fake morality of, I love what you're saying there, Outcast, of they're using it as an excuse to be able to do whatever they want because it's a lie. They're saying they're being virtuous. It's this false virtue signaling when it's actually being unvirtuous. And it's an excuse to be able to be immoral. And that's exactly what they're doing. Going back to your other comment about the race baiting and the things along those lines, I highly encourage everyone to go check out Manning Johnson, his book, Color, Communism, and Common Sense. He was a black man during the civil rights era, during the time of Martin Luther King. And he actually wrote a book because he was a former communist that knew what was going on behind the scenes to be able to entice and incite these race riots. And so he showed that the expose behind that. Another black woman that was also a former communist that actually woke up to what was going on and saw how the Rockefellers were actually the ones pushing the orders to their local communist chapters to incite these race riots. And so Julia Brown videos on YouTube, and then Color Communism and Common Sense by Manning Johnson. I think there's some videos of him online as well. He shows the long history, because right now, if we are only focused on what's happening right now, what we're being told is happening with us right now, then we forget, we don't have this institutional memory of how these tactics that have been used for so long, then we can get easily sucked into it. And so if we look at what people said 50, 60, 70 years ago, we start to really see and pull the curtain back and know what's really going on, not fall for it, and actually be able to stop it.
You know, that Manning Johnson, I've heard him in old recordings before explaining all this. And what was her name again? Juliet
Brown.
Juliet Brown. Julie Brown. Julia. Okay, Julia Brown. So yeah, I've heard them both talk. I never knew what her name was, but Manning, man, they explained it and laid it right out. They had jobs to do. They had, they turned and I guess they had their own awakening, and they spilled it all. Outcast, it's so good. I totally forgot about them. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm gonna have to dig in and get some clips from them and play them on the show sometime. They're really good.
Yeah.
We have Fire Doug. He's in the chat, and he's saying, Outcast, it was also because we are born in sin, and our nature is to sin, and it is the love of the Holy Spirit to keep us on the correct moral compass. Yeah, and
Amen.
Also I want to throw this in there too. Liberty without morals, well, you have freedom. Okay, freedom to do anything you want without morals, without virtue, just go crazy. But when you change it to, when you add morals in there, all of a sudden now you have liberty. So I'm not sure if a lot of people understand that there's a difference between freedom and liberty. But, that's basically what it is.
And what happens when you have that freedom and you have no moral check? Then it leads to tyranny, which then, because you are now a despotic person, you are involved in debauchery. And so now, because nobody can judge you and you can do whatever you want, now you are violating the rights of others because of your immorality, and now government needs to come in and put its boot down to stop you.
Yep.
And so this false liberty, this libertinism, is actually the gateway to tyranny, because you think you're getting freedom, but they're laying the groundwork to be able to force government to stop you from being free.
And you'll never learn these things in school. They just roll right on through it. That's the scariest thing here is, I'm sure anybody out there's looked at let's say an 8th grade exam in middle school. Well, they didn't have middle school back then, but 8th grade exam from 100 years ago. How many of you would pass that? How many of us would pass that? I'm telling you, weren't they way, way more intelligent with things like liberty, with things like principles and things like that? I'm not sure if we could attempt to even get through that 8th grade test back then. It's crazy.
You go back to the 1780s and 90s, and we have the Federalist Papers. This was written for the common farmer, which the media wants to tell us now is dumb as rocks. But I guarantee you get the average, 30-year-old that is a college graduate goes and reads this, they're not going to know what half the words mean.
Yeah.
And so, absolutely, I agree with you 100%, Jesse.
Those Federalist books are great. I've got a ton of them here. But go ahead, Outcast. I see you want to say something there.
Oh, no, I don't know. Who knows what was on my mind? I was just marveling at the whole thing. I mean, it's to be a first-rate nation and to be virtually dead last in education is a travesty. And the schools, as we know, this is everybody that listens to the show knows this already. I'm sorry for my redundancy, but they're not teaching critical thinking. They're creating good little robots, like your little video in the beginning said, Jesse. It is so utterly true. I'm kind of biting my tongue here. I don't want to be mean, but I recently met one of my customers' kids who is, by the way, acing college and to be a I don't know if it was a pharmacist. No, it's something bigger than that. But anyways, they were going for a big degree, like a PhD degree in some scientific realm. This kid was the most unimpressive, limited vocabulary, baby talking. I was so unimpressed with this kid, and they're supposedly acing college and on their way to being a physicist or something. And I was just like, what is going on here? I mean, it gave me the creeps because I wasn't an A student. I'm thinking I wasn't a good student, but I'm like, this person couldn't hold a conversation with anybody outside of like a Britney Spears type of conversation, or other than talking about Taylor Swift or something. There was no depth in this kid, and they're acing school to be a physicist. I'm sorry if I'm missing something, and I apologize if I sound like a jerk, but man, it just struck me as alarming. And like, that's what it hit me. It's like, they're training people to be good little soldiers. They're not training people to be fantastic thinkers. They gotta be, it's gotta be when you meet some of these young people, it's very sad. Sorry, just another tangent. I apologize, you guys. I'm off in the weeds again.
Yeah, Ben, the government indoctrination is strong, and it's been around for a long time. Every generation, it seems to be dumbed down more and more and more and more. It's just, man, it is wild what I see out there. Like what you're saying there, Outcast. It's just, where's this going? Where's it all going to end? Right? Think about another thing too. Well, go ahead, answer that first.
Well, I was just going to say that not only are they dumbing us down, which is 100% true. The schools now are, they tell you to write the major newspapers, New York Times, for the 5th grade reading level, because that's what. And I guarantee you, people that dropped out in 5th grade aren't reading the New York Times. So that tells you what these college graduates' reading levels are. But they're also mixed the education system with, they're pumping us full of psychotropics. And so they're like, oh, you're misbehaving. You can't sit still for 8 hours straight, and you're a little boy. Here's some drugs. Oh, you're sad because somebody was mean to you. Here's some more drugs. And so they're control. It leads to mind control. And then they teach you how to think they teach you what to think instead of how to think. Mm-hmm. And so with the manipulation of the teaching mixed with the psychotropics, they're creating zombies out there to be able to be good little foot soldiers for the New World Order.
The word government. Outcast, go ahead, bring it up.
No, that's just, every time Ben speaks, he just makes the neurons fire in my head. He's right. Yeah. He's absolutely right. What were you going to say, Jesse? You're going to say about government? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hijack anything.
Government. There's 2 words there.
Oh.
What are those 2 words? I mean, we talked about it here on the show before. It's mind control, right?
Right.
So, you have 2 words that when you put them together, it means mind control. You try to tell that to some normie. They're like, no, it doesn't. Nope. So it's crazy. Question for Ben from Lover of Truth says, who is author of the book you held up? He is. Oh no, the Federalist Papers. The author.
The Federalist Papers. So the Federalist Papers, you've got Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. These are the what were called Federalists, where they were writing articles in the local newspapers to sell the local people and the states on ratifying the Constitution. And so it's this book. Well, it's 1 volume, and it is just, each chapter is a different letter that was published by one of those 3 founding fathers. Yeah, must read.
You have I've got a ton of them too. That you have the Federalist Papers, you have the Anti-Federalist Papers, and this is all all the pre-discussion, you guys, before they put the Constitution together. So that's where you get the context for the Constitution. Go read those arguments. Ben, people don't know this stuff because we weren't taught that. Go ahead.
And it was born out of the Scottish Enlightenment movement too. That's another thing to look into.
Yeah, there you go. I have I was hoping I had one in my stack, but they're in the other room over there, where all my main books are. But there's just a bunch here that I like. It's this very small books. War is a Racket. That's Smedley Butler, you guys. Go look at that. A Choice, Not an Echo. That's Phyllis Schlafly. Go look at that. Rules of Civility and Decent Behavior. That's a fun book. That's George Washington when he was 14? Something like that. Here's one of my favorites, Common Sense, Thomas Paine. The Law, Frederick Bastiat. You guys, look at how thin these books are. They're very simple. And here's another one, Dumbing Us Down, John Taylor Gatto. The one I don't have in hard copy is Ben's book, but I have the PDF right here. I'm looking at it. Invasion, Exposing the Hidden Agenda, Unveiling the Path to Freedom by Ben McClintock. So I'm glad you
both a copy. So look in the mail.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Awesome. I can't wait to see that. But I've been scrolling through the PDF version you sent me here. I like books better. The PDF ones drive me nuts. But I appreciate it. Yeah, because it's a good hard copy. I saved it onto the hard drive, and it's also in my phone, so it's good to go. But yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Ben, as it's getting kind of late, but real quick, what's your take on Klaus Schwab stepping down? How does Ben McClintock digest something like that? Is that just a smoke and mirrors? Does it symbolize anything? Anything to be excited about? Anything to be cautious about? Any thoughts on that?
To me, these guys retire just like everybody else. They have somebody there to replace them. It's not like Klaus Schwab's, and that's what they want us to think is, George Soros goes away, he dies, and now, man is free again. They have their replacement set up, and so it's really just a changing of the guard, and just with and they don't have their replacement be different than they are, and so they've trained up their replacement to be just like them, and so it's going to be a new name, and the Council on Foreign Relations, they choose a new leader every few years. The Trilateralists, the Bohemian Grove, Skull and Bones, they all choose their leaders every few years, and Alfalfa Club, same thing. So, no, I don't think it's a sign of anything except for people get old and they need somebody new.
So you don't see any connection between the Pope dying and Schwab stepping down the same day? Is there? I know it would be tough, but is there any correlation there?
There could be, and because they do love their symbolism. And so, but when I was saying what I was saying, I was referring to, is it a sign of like, oh, here's some, there's going to be one less bad guy to influence the world. But is there symbolism behind it? I don't know. It's kind of early on for me to kind of see what all the symbols could be, but it's definitely plausible and frankly likely.
Thank you. I was just curious.
And I'm pretty sure Alex Soros, which is George Soros' son, he's already got a hold of that. He's young. He's been under the wings for many, many years now. And over there with Klaus Schwab, I imagine somebody like Yuval Noah Harari will just take that over. Somebody like him. I mean, they're all the same kind of people. They're all the same satanic agenda for us. So let's bring it on. That's what I'm saying. Bring it on. Put your braces back on your ARs. So. I did.
You mentioned, I don't mean to jump in, but Outcast mentioned, I think it was Outcast, it might have been you, Jesse, but one of you mentioned the Scottish Enlightenment era, and that's a really important era. There's one of the books is actually in my book Invasion. We reprinted from the 1600s called Killing No Murder, and I'm working on another one from that same era called Min Katakal, The Downfall of Tyranny. And those two books really bring in some principles of natural law. They define what a tyrant is. They define what is the godly response. It goes through the scriptures, through the Old Testament, New Testament, and shows what is the godly person's response to a tyrant. What is a godly definition of a tyrant? What does that mean for us? And so that era, I love that era. Some of the founding fathers read a lot of that stuff. And so I just want people to know that, yes, that is something that is in the book, and then we're reprinting another book from that era that really is just vital reading for us to be able to actually start to go on the offense. So I appreciate you bringing up that era.
Very cool. That's exciting. Thank you. I'm glad I brought it up. Yeah. That's cool.
Well, listen, Ben, it's been another good meeting here with you tonight. It's just full of all the good information, you guys. I want you to go check out treeoflibertysociety.com, you guys. Buy that book, Invasion. All right, get over there. Ben, where's the best place would you recommend that people go buy the book?
So the book is banned on Amazon. So what does Amazon hiding from you? So you can get it from treeoflibertysociety.com, or you can get it at Barnes & Noble if you'd prefer, if you feel safer from a big corporation. But you definitely can get it at either one of those outlets.
Okay. You know, it doesn't surprise me one bit that it's, they don't like this kind of thinking over on Amazon. And usually Barnes and Nobles doesn't either. They might put a price tag of $99 or something, you know?
Not enough people go over to Barnes and Noble, so we're low under the radar.
Yeah, awesome. Well, there's a lot of people here saying thank you, Ben. Outcast, any final thoughts here for Ben before he heads out?
Ben, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for your vigilance. Thank you for your intellect. Thank you for your spiritual nature. You are a wealth of information and a great person. We are so happy to have you on our team, and we do consider you part of the Dangerous Info family. And we just wish you all the success in the selling of your books. We pray that you just see people wake up within your lifetime to this tyranny at hand. And I'm excited to hear about the Scottish Enlightenment brought up in your book too. That's really, really cool. I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's awesome. And as always, Ben, stay dangerous. And we're going to get you back on here again. I want to dig more into the book. And Lover of Truth says, do you sell the Federalist Papers book too? No, you can buy that Federalist Papers book anywhere. It's a little thin book, and you can order it wherever you want. And everybody should have that book in their. Too. And it's what?
Free online as well. You can get it online.
Oh, it is? Okay, yeah. So you can get it online. Oh. I love the hard cover, or the paper covers. But yeah, everybody should have that in their arsenal is what I'm saying. Awesome. Okay, Ben. Thank you. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Good night.
God bless you.
Take care. Shalom.